Hey guys, Curtis here. In this video, I'm going to tell you a simple, easy to use technique that you can use to help reduce your anxiety in the moment while you are feeling anxious about anything. You can be anxious about something that's coming up, like, you're about to have a job interview, or you can be anxious about just life in general, the condition of your life, sort of a generalized anxiety. And the technique is chill out for a second and, stop moving, get alone somewhere, and just explain to yourself in detail why you are anxious and what you are afraid of and why. And tell yourself the truth about why you are anxious. So if I was applying for jobs or something, or maybe I'm not applying for jobs because I'm too anxious about it, maybe I would say something like, I am afraid that I'm going to apply for 50 jobs and only one of them is going to give me an interview and everyone else is just going to ignore me or reject me or kind of decide that my resume isn't impressive enough. And then I'm going to go into that one interview and I'm not going to be able to answer the tough questions they ask me. And then 2 days later, I'm going to go home and I'm going to get a rejection letter. And I'm going to feel like all my efforts for applying for those 50 jobs were wasted. And now I feel like I'm never going to get hired anywhere. At least if I don't apply for jobs, I feel like maybe I have a chance of, getting my dream job. But if I apply for a bunch of jobs and get rejected from all of them, then I know I will never get my dream job if I just got rejected from it. So that might be an explanation that I give to myself when I use this technique. Um, if you're afraid of, going out to a bar and dancing in front of people. I recently did that with my fiance. We went out dancing for the first time in a long time, and we had a lot of fun. But if you're afraid of dancing, like I used to be, you might explain your fear. And back then, I would probably say something like, if I knew about this technique, I would probably say something like, I am afraid that I'm going to stand up in front of a bunch of people and I don't know how to dance, so I'm going to look like a dumbass. And I'm going to move around, and no one's going to want to dance with me, and I'm just going to look like an awkward loser who's trying to be cool but is not. And then people are going to think I'm a weird loser who doesn't know how to dance. I might explain something like that. That's something I might have said like 7 or 8 years ago before I figured out how to not really care what people think about me and not have anxiety in situations like that. But basically, you just need to explain every detail of why you are afraid, and what. Just tell yourself, like, if everything goes wrong, what's the worst thing that will happen? And literally, just tell yourself the truth about what could happen bad to you, about what you're afraid of, what you're anxious of, and I'm not entirely sure why this technique works, but I think part of it is because it helps you get out of avoiding your feeling of fear. In a different video on my YouTube channel where I talk about how I used to have avoidant personality disorder, which is a severe anxiety disorder, I talk about how you can get rid of fear by sort of letting yourself feel the fear and actually choosing to feel it on purpose until basically the energy of fear actually runs out within your mind, sort of, so to speak. The emotional energy of it like disappears, and then you're at peace. And I think this technique is actually like a baby step to doing that. Because if you're willing to acknowledge that acknowledge the outcomes that you're afraid of, and you're willing to accept, like, yes, that is a real outcome that could happen, and you're willing to lay it out and just tell yourself the truth and detail what you're afraid of, suddenly, you actually gain more control over the situation because you're like, okay, now I have a list in my head of like the actual outcomes that I don't want to happen. And, even though I'm still afraid of them, I can take reasonable steps to avoid those outcomes. And, I can be honest with myself. What are the chances that the worst outcome is actually going to happen? Probably not that high. Like someone who's afraid of heights, if you explain, I'm afraid I'm going to slip and fall off the building, I mean, how likely is that if you hold on to the guardrail? It's not that likely. So, yeah, just this technique, you have to try it to see the relief, but I have found that anytime I'm anxious about anything, if I stop avoiding the truth, which is that I am afraid of something, and I just explain to myself, this is what I'm afraid of, and this is why I'm afraid of it, that usually takes off a portion of the fear, and it starts the process of reducing the fear. And if you want to have more information about how to actually get rid of the entire feeling of fear, you should watch my older video, which is in my YouTube channel. I don't have a lot of videos. It's the one about avoidant personality disorder. I don't remember what I called it. I'll look it up. Maybe I'll link it in the description of this video. It's called Avoidant Personality Disorder, How I Cured Myself. But this step is like a baby step to that process. I think this step is more accessible. All you do is you tell yourself the truth, explain what you are afraid of and why you're afraid of it, and what outcomes are you actually afraid of. And this will take off, like, in my experience, this will reduce not necessarily your fear, but your fear of feeling fear. It's like you're getting rid of the denial. Something that people do is when they're afraid of something, they actually avoid acknowledging that they're afraid of it. Like they're so afraid that they're afraid of admitting that they're afraid. And what this is about is admitting that you're afraid of something and acknowledging it. And that is actually a courageous step that is a small step in getting rid of all of your fear. So try this technique and tell me how it works for you. I think you can apply it to pretty much anything. And it only takes like 1 minute. Sit down and explain to yourself, what am I afraid of and why? If you want to make a list, if you want to dive deep and like write down everything you're afraid of and why, that would probably be a really healthy psychological process. But go ahead and try it, and you can tell me in the comments how it works for you. I really enjoy reading your comments in the YouTube comment section. I don't always reply to all of them. My first video about anxiety got like 1,000 comments, so it's kind of hard to reply to all of them. But go ahead and do that, and tell me how it works.